I've decided to dedicate the first video of my channel to addressing the misconceptions you've been spreading about the skin color of the Moors. I'm unsure whether this is intentional or due to a lack of understanding, but either way, it's crucial to set the record straight and provide some clarity on the matter. However, before we move forward, I'd like to clarify 4 important points. Firstly, the term Aethiops does not directly translate to black in Greek or Latin. Supremacist narratives have intentionally misinterpreted it to create a false division between North Africa and the rest of the continent, thus facilitating the whitening of its history. This distortion overlooks the presence of numerous Ethiopian populations in North Africa during the Roman era, including the Mazicum, Perorsi, Farusi, Daratite, Asphodelodes, Nigbenitae, Hesperi, and Garamantes. In ancient Greek, terms such as melas, kelainos, and mavro were used to describe black skin, while the Romans employed words like Niger, Panasia, Nigerimus, Ater, Fuscus, and Dicula. The Moors' black skin was also described with phrases like incocti corpora and adustus corpora, meaning burned bodies, expressions even more explicit than Aethiops, which translates to burned face. Examining the original writings of Greek and Roman historians shows that they used terms like melas and Niger to describe the skin color of the Moori, Ethiopians, Numidians, Afri, and ancient Egyptians, confirming their black identity. Secondly, both anthropologists and geneticists agree that there is no distinct Berber race, people, or language. In his work Une excursion à Tanger, ce que nous croyons de l'origine des Moors, Adolphe Bloch assert, it is highly doubtful that a Berber race ever existed. Ethnographic research has revealed a great variety of types among those called Berbers. The differences between a Rifi, a Susi, a Mzabite, a Shawi, and a Kabyle are so significant that grouping them under one race distorts taxonomic definitions. Similarly, Augustin Bernard, in Enquête sur l'habitation rurale des indigènes de l'Algérie, 1925, states, a single glance is enough to convince one that the Berbers do not form a homogeneous group and that they differ greatly from each other, both in somatic characteristics and physical features. One can easily distinguish a Kabyle from a Mozabite or a Biskri, even if we take into account the influence of black blood, which is very noticeable in the oases, as well as the geographical environment and way of life. These influences do not seem sufficient to explain differences that are fundamental. One fact remains established. The Berber race is not a single one. It is composed of various elements. It is mixed and intertwined from the very beginning. North Africa, a vast crossroads, has continuously seen the arrival of fugitives and conquerors from all origins since the most ancient times. It has been an open receptacle for all races from Asia and Europe. In their study, Genetic Heterogeneity Between Berbers and Arabs, Lara R. Arona and David Comas state, regardless of the genetic markers analyzed, North African populations have been described as a mosaic of North African, Middle Eastern, European, and Sub-Saharan ancestries. The differential admixture with these 4 ancestry sources explains the current genetic structure in North Africa, characterized by diverse and heterogeneous populations. Early Muslim historians consistently described the original Berbers as black. The 10th century Persian work Boundaries of the World notes, the lands of the Maghreb are vast, with many deserts and rugged mountains. Its inhabitants are black and dark brown skinned. It contains numerous cities, villages, and districts. In its deserts, countless Berbers reside. Thirdly, the so-called Trans-Saharan slave trade is a colonial myth designed to erase the history of black North Africans. Following their defeat at the Battle of Dongola against the Nubian kingdom of Makuria in 642 AD, the first major Muslim loss in battle despite their numerical superiority, Muslim redirected their military efforts toward the Middle East, North Africa, then under Byzantine rule, Iran, India, Western and Central Asia, the Caucasus, and Southern Europe. This expansion resulted in the enslavement of over 30 million Europeans between the 7th and 20th centuries, with Spaniards and Italians comprising a significant portion. The historian Ibn Khaldun, in Kitab al-Iba, documents the scale of enslavement during military operations. He dispatched military expeditions to various regions and sent his son, Abdullah, by sea to the island of Majorca, where he seized spoils and enslaved captives before returning. He then sent him to another region, as well as his son Marwan. Meanwhile, he himself set out to a different region, where he also seized spoils and enslaved captives before returning. The 5th portion of the spoils included 70,000 enslaved people. Since 70,000 represented only the combs, 1/5 of the total spoils, This suggests that the total number of enslaved individuals from this single military campaign was approximately 350,000. This staggering figure underscores the scale of enslavement as a tool of war and conquest. In the 7th century, Muslim forces launched invasions into Sicily, which fell fully under their control by the 9th century. The island became a crucial base for raids into Italian and European territories, leading to the widespread enslavement of local populations. The historian Ibn Idari al-Marakshi in Al-Bayan al-Maghrib fi Akhbar al-Andalus wal-Maghrib records one such campaign. In the year 239 Hijri, 854 AD, during the summer campaign led by Abbas bin al-Fadl in Sicily, he ravaged the crops of the Christians, deployed raiding parties across various locations, and captured several cities, including Caltagirone, Catania, and Siracusa. He laid siege to the city of Bonera for 6 months until a truce was reached in which the inhabitants agreed to pay a ransom of 6,000 Italian slaves. He then returned to Palermo and successfully captured the city of Sperlinga. The large-scale enslavement of Europeans continued in subsequent centuries. One of the most infamous incidents was the 1544 sack of Lipari, an island in the Kingdom of Naples, by the Ottoman admiral Hayreddin Barbarossa. After enslaving 4,000 inhabitants of Ischia, he proceeded to Lipari, where he enslaved nearly the entire population of 11,000 people. Even into the 19th century, the practice of raiding European coastal regions for slaves persisted. In 1816, British Admiral Lord Exmouth encountered an Algerian pirate vessel whose crew demanded food for 200 Christian slaves they had recently captured from the Italian coast of Apulia, threatening to throw them overboard if their demands were not met. The legacy of this practice is evident in individual historical accounts. The grandfather of Bejicaïd Essebsi, the former president of Tunisia, was a Sardinian slave captured by Tunisian Turks in the 19th century. He was forcibly brought to Tunisia and given the surname Essebsi, meaning pipe, due to his role in preparing tobacco for his masters. I understand that the figure of 30 million white slaves might seem incredible to some. Therefore, I will dedicate 5 videos to present the evidence supporting this claim, offering a comprehensive look at this often overlooked chapter of history. Fourthly, as a Moroccan, I can affirm that black and brown people constitute the overwhelming majority of North Africa's population. More than 80% of North Africa's landmass is inhabited by indigenous black Africans, whose presence predates recorded history. In contrast, the coastal regions are home to populations largely descended from white slaves and various historical migrant groups, including Ottoman Turks, expelled Iberian Muslims from Spain, Moriscos, as well as remnants of Romans, Greeks, Byzantines, Persians, Vandals, and Goths. These groups arrived in successive waves due to conquests and forced migrations. However, moving inland beyond the coastal cities, one finds predominantly black Africans, the original inhabitants of North Africa, whose presence and cultural heritage continue to define the region's historical identity. Western anthropologists who studied North African populations confirmed their black African origins. In Une excursion à Tanger, Adolphe Bloch noted, "The Moors of Morocco have often been compared to mulattoes due to the preconceived notion that they resulted from a mix of whites and blacks." He further stated, "Indeed, the race that gave birth to Moroccans could only be that of the African Negroes." Now that we've covered that lengthy introduction, let's dive into the undeniable black African origins of the Moors. Historical sources have consistently emphasized black skin as a defining characteristic of the Moors. The term Moor itself derives from the Greek word Mavro, meaning black, further solidifying the connection between their identity and their African roots. Marcus Manilius, in his 1st century poem Astronomica, explicitly connects the name Mauritania, modern-day northern Morocco and Algeria, to the skin color of its inhabitants. He states, Mauritania derives its name from the color of its inhabitants. This connection between the land and the complexion of its people was later reaffirmed by Isidore of Seville, a 7th century scholar, in his encyclopedic work, the Etymologies, AD 625. Isidore further explains the etymology of the term Moors, writing, "The Maori are called by this name because of their color, as the Greeks used the word Mavro to mean black. Indeed, being affected by the intense summer heat, they acquire a black color." He further contrasts Mauritania with regions like Gaul, drawing attention to skin tone as a marker of geographic and ethnic identity. Mauritania is named after the color of its people, for the Greeks call black Mavro. Just as Gaul was named for the white skin of its people, Mauritania took its name from their black skin. In the Etymologies, Isidore also catalogues the distinctive traits of various ancient peoples, framing physical appearance as a form of cultural and ethnic distinction. After describing practices such as Germanic hairstyles, Gothic facial hair, British tattoos, and Jewish circumcision, he highlights the Moors' striking features. The Moors have bodies black as night, while the skin of the Gauls is white. This juxtaposition underscores how ancient writers often categorized Moors as black. Juvenal, in his work, The Satires, late 1st to early 2nd century AD, makes explicit reference to the black skin of the Moors, emphasizing it as a distinguishing feature. I complained just now that you were not served with the same wine. Why, you are not allowed the same water. Some Gaetulian footboy, or the hand of a raw-boned black Moor, gives you the cup. Silius Italicus, in his Punica, 88 AD, offers vivid depictions of the Moors, often highlighting their black skin as a defining characteristic. In Book 2, he describes a Moorish warrior, and now the Romans were fighting fiercely against the straggling and fleeing foe when suddenly Tunga, the Moor, a formidable giant, rushed forward to battle. His body was black, and his lofty chariot was drawn by black horses. In Book 17 of Punica, Silius further underscores the black complexion of a Moorish woman. Herds of wild beasts pursued by hunters and African huts carved in shining metal. Not far off, the savage black sister of a burned Moor soothed her lioness companions with her native speech. Similarly, in Book 8, Silius emphasizes the presence of black-skinned Moors among captives and warriors. Before him went Syphax, borne on a litter, his eyes downcast as a captive and chains of gold around his neck. Hanno followed, accompanied by noble youths of Carthage, as well as the chief men of the Macedonians and the Moors with burned bodies. He adds later in the same book, "While Garamantians and burned-body Moors share Italy with me." In his 5th century work, Iohannis, Corippus also highlights the black skin of the Moors. "There sat a woman, horrid to behold, the same color as her black children. They were like the young of crows, whom you can see turning black as their mother sits above them." In another passage, Corippus emphasizes a Moorish woman's striking black complexion. "A Moorish woman appeared, her face black in color, dreadful, and twisting her eyes, which were covered with flames. Then she began to speak. 'To which shores do you direct your fleet? Do you think to cross into Libya?' In yet another part of the work, Corippus recounts, "Amid the tribes, carrying commands, I ran, and upon arriving I saw a fierce tyrant beneath a cliff in the highest mountains. Then he calls the rebels, summoning them with a blast of the trumpet. The Moors' crowd gathers, rushing with swift course, and their black faces fill the tents." He also mentions 4 Moorish warriors, the black Mananasan, black Lamaldan, black Mamonis, and black Sacoma. Procopius, in his 6th century work, Vandal Wars, provides a geographical and ethnographic observation that contrasts the black skin of the Moors with other populations. According to what this man said, beyond the land over which he rules, no humans dwell. Instead, the land extends as a vast desert for a great distance. Beyond that desert, there are people who are not black-skinned, like the Moors, but rather have white skin and blonde hair. Such indeed is the account as it stands. Procopius uses the term melanochroi, meaning black, to explicitly describe the black complexion of the Moors, further emphasizing its central role in their identity. Martial, in his Epigrams, also references the physical characteristics of the Moors, particularly their hair. This man, with kinky hair, walking like a Moor, admits he is the son of the cook, Santra. The term retortocrine refers to the kinky or frizzy hair commonly associated with black individuals, a feature also depicted on Trajan's column. Does this Moorish cavalier depicted on Trajan's column with his kinky hair, full lips, broad nose, and large eyes look white to you? These historical accounts consistently highlight black skin as a defining feature of the Moors. In these texts, the Moors' black skin emerges as a crucial marker of their distinct identity, emphasizing its role in shaping historical narratives. I suggest you reconsider your sources, expand your reading, and stop undermining others or attacking their history without evidence.